This tutorial is going to cover exercise 3 in chapter 7. For this particular exercise, we're going to do this one. We're going to use a lot of patterning type features to get the holes done, but I'm just going to go ahead and start on the top plane with a new sketch, and I'm going to draw the base of the feature. First I'm going to click on sketch view, and then instead of doing a regular rectangle, I want to do a centered rectangle to get this part started. Now the distance across the front of this piece is 100, and it is 150 down the side. So essentially that's all I need for this first sketch that I'm going to be doing, and now I'm going to go ahead and extrude this. Its total thickness of 20. Once I have that done, because I did a centered rectangle, I still have the two axes that cross right here, and the origin point is still directly in the center of my object. So at this point I'm going to click on this surface and I'm going to do a new sketch. Since my origin is in the center, all I have to do for this one here is a circle. And I'm going to put a diameter dimension on that circle of 30. Once I'm done with that circle, then I can go ahead and extrude that, its thickness, which is going to be 40. And I will go ahead and hit the checkbox for that. Next I'm going to click on this face and go to the sketch command, and I am going to draw the circle that represents the top face of my object, and I'm going to assign a diameter value to this of 80. And I'll go ahead and finish that sketch, and then I can extrude this particular piece, its thickness, which is also going to be 20. Pretty much from here on out, what I'm going to be doing is a lot of patterned features to locate the rest of my objects. So in the drawing, the hole that is in this lower right hand corner is the one that is located, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on hole, and I'm going to select this face to locate the hole, click on placement, click in the box where it says click here to specify offset references, and then I'm going to click the right edge, hit control, and while holding control I'm going to left click the bottom edge. I can now change this dimension to 15, change this one to 15. The diameter dimension for these holes is 10, and they go through all. So now that I have that first hole, and immediately after I hit that checkbox, you'll notice that that hole is actually selected, so that gives me the ability to do the pattern features. If I selected somewhere else and then wanted to go back and pattern it, then I would just simply come over here and click hole and then go back to pattern. Now the pattern type that I want is a directional pattern. So I'm just going to click the drop down next to dimension and select direction. So for my direction 1, I'm going to click on this line right here, and that's going to give me the top set of holes, and I know that the distance between them is 120. So now I'm going to click here to add a second direction, and then I'm going to click this bottom line, and if you notice it's going the wrong way, so I'm going to click this arrow to flip it, and then my distance in this case is going to be 70. So with that set up, the black dots that represent the pattern don't always necessarily look correct, but if you look at them flat or on the edge where the holes are actually started from, it makes it a little bit easier to see. But as long as your dimensions are correct and everything appears to be going in the right direction, you can go ahead and select OK, and you'll see that that gives me all of the holes on the base of this feature. Next I'm going to go ahead and do the fillets, which all have a radius of 15, and I will select the 4 corners and say OK. The next hole that I have to place is going to be the hole that dictates the pattern that goes around this top face. Now there's several different ways that I can do this. Some of the ways are a little bit easier than the others. And what I want to do is I kind of want to do this in a way that requires the least amount of work. So if you think back to the way that I originally started this, I did a centered rectangle, and that gave me this axis, or this plane, and this plane as my default planes. Well, I know that the bolt hole circle diameter in this case is 60, which means that the radius would be 30, so that first hole is going to be 30 up from my front datum plane. And since it rests at the 12 o'clock position on here, that means its distance from the right plane is going to be 0. So I can use the hole command and select this face, and then go to placement and click my offset references. For the offset references, I'm just going to click my front datum plane, hit Control, and select my other datum plane. I know that this distance is going to be 30, this distance is going to be 0, and now for the diameter and everything else, I need to be a little bit more careful with exactly how I do this. I know that the diameter is going to be 10, but in this case I don't want to go through all, because if I go through all, it's going to come through here and go through the base. So I'm just going to use the thickness of 20, which is the thickness of this piece. That way the hole doesn't go any further down than that. Once I have that hole specified, I can go ahead and hit the checkbox. And again, it's automatically highlighted, so I can go to Pattern. For this pattern, I'm going to come down here and select Axis instead of Direction. And now it wants me to select the axis, and again, because I did everything on that default plane and the default axis, I have axes that I can use. And it comes up here and says that it's going to create 4 items with a distance of 90 degrees in between. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 6 items, and then instead of having this option selected, which is the distance between them, I'm going to go ahead and select this, which is the total degrees of the entire pattern, which in this case it's a circular pattern, so it's 360 degrees. Once I have that specified, I can hit OK, and here we have that object complete with all the holes and everything. So at this point, I'm ready to go ahead and save this file and turn it in.